Hello, and thanks for attending today's webinar on Geotab. Today we're going to talk about selling Geotab into the enterprise. So first and foremost, take advantage of your relationships. If your relationships are in IT today, if they're with telecom, start there. Don't get hung up on getting to the right title. All departments own safety, efficiencies, and analyze data. Internally, utilize all channels. Don't think of Geotab as a traditional BSP product with internal challenges. We have teaming approved on all channels. It's a great M10 product with a short sales cycle. Look for decentralized accounts. Don't forget about contractors, individual locations that have their own purchasing ability. Anything assigned to your corporate hierarchy is going to count towards retiring your CL quota. 10 CL ads at 10 franchises count the same as a 100-unit CL deal at corporate. Today's presentation will be led by me, Andy Georgian. I will then be handing it off to Stephen Bell, and Stephen Bell will give you an in-depth overview of the My Geotab portal. Just want to go over a couple FAQs as it pertains to STS and Sprint. There is approved blanket teaming on all Geotab projects. No challenge to engaging STS as a partner of BSP. STS is Sprint exclusive and does not support the Geotab solution on other carriers. STS derives no compensation from any carrier outside of Sprint. Geotab has been added to numerous contract vehicles with standing discounts and easy procurement options, such as WSCA, GSA, or maybe a GPO like Truckers B2B. All the hardware, software, and accessories are Sprint built. That actually now includes all Garmin models as well. It's a comprehensive solution to include monitoring on all classes of vehicles. Additional cabling allows the Go 6 to interface with an OBD2, a JBus, a CAN bus, and more. For any other questions, please refer to the Sprint Geotab QRB at the link below. Today's agenda. We're going to first talk about Geotab as a product and a company. We're then going to go through the plug-and-play nature of the device itself. We're going to discuss the 4 telematics priorities and how Geotab works within them. I will then be handing off the presentation to Stephen Bell, where he will give you an overview of the My Geotab web portal and a walkthrough of the features and functionality. Then we'll open it up for a question and answer session. About STS, very simply, making mobility work for you. It's been a core partner of Sprint since 2004. Some core strengths include the consultative solution-based sales approach, in-depth vertical understanding, and a collaborative effort between our sales and support team and Sprint. The thing we would like to impart to you is, when you sell a Geotab solution, you are kept in the loop the entire time, but STS will own the project for you. About Geotab, a worldwide leader in GPS management. For over a decade, Geotab has been a proven industry leader in the area of GPS fleet management and vehicle tracking. Fortune 500 companies, including 30% of the top 10 fleets and 10% of the top 100 fleets in North America, rely on Geotab's technology. If you see a brown truck, perhaps delivering packages in your neighborhood, good chance the Geotab solution has been implemented there. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the device itself. The great thing to remember here is it is truly a plug-and-play device. An average installation is under 30 seconds. So what you see here today all starts with the Go 6 device. The Go 6 device will plug directly into the vehicle's OBD2 port, and from there we'll open up capabilities of engine monitoring, driver ID. Through the accelerometer, we can also pick up things on driver safety, as well as ensuring seatbelt usage. Through the IOX integration, we can communicate out to a Garmin, which will allow for simple text to be sent back and forth, as well as that driver to use the Garmin for its core functionality of driving directions, etc. The IOX technology opens up a world of expandability. If it's satellite tracking, again Garmin navigation, or maybe other sensors and controls, with our technology, the answer is now yes to what your client's needs are. We also have accident detection solution, and the G-force sensors on the vehicle will allow you to recreate an accident, thus creating another level of value above and beyond simple GPS tracking. But the real key here, how are we helping that client reduce fuel cost? We pick up fuel consumption directly off of the vehicle itself, thus giving your client a tremendous opportunity to save money on their operating costs. So here's a little picture of the Go 6 unit. As you can see here, it's about the size of a deck of playing cards, maybe a pack of Altoids. It's going to plug directly into that vehicle, and once again, install is all of 30 seconds. So here are the harnesses for vehicle compatibility. Your needed Geotab cables, once again, all sourced on Sprint paper. The important thing to look at here is anything that you will need to make this work for any class of vehicle, we have a solution available for it. The harnesses that you see here are used for connecting to a 6 or 9 pin connection used in most heavy trucks, but also important to note for other pieces of heavy machinery. show perhaps things in a yellow fleet, perhaps a cat, a backloader, a skid steer, or maybe things that you have traditionally thought about using for asset tracking. We now open up the capability for not only tracking the asset, but how that asset is performing. Garmin GPS devices. So very simply, Garmin GPS devices can assist with navigation and dispatching integration. You can send two-way communication between drivers and dispatchers, send stops and routes directly to the vehicle. Drivers can change their status by touching the screen. Monitors for device disconnection, ensuring 100% uptime for communication. All messages are verified and timestamped. Driver status information can be color-coded, and all driver information can be displayed on a map. Additionally, this is a basic Garmin unit and can be used for all of the core functionality that people enjoy with the Garmin today. Driver identification. So here we see a new feature and functionality to Geotab, which will allow for slip seat tracking, and we can ensure that we not only know what's going on with the vehicle, but exactly who was driving it today. World's first telematics with NFC driver ID with our IOX system. The driver ID can be combined with vehicle immobilization. Transfer their driver identification information up to the cloud. It's a simple install and will also really help you in your scoring reports. The four core pillars that drive Geotab's ongoing innovation and the four telematics priorities are very simply safety, productivity, fleet optimization, and compliance. So how does Geotab improve fleet and driver safety? Some features. It monitors compliance through summarized exception reporting, such as hard corners, seatbelt use, speeding, hard braking events. Allow your customer to create a driver scorecard and gear those towards safety metrics. Driver feedback creates in-vehicle correction for the driver. Think about when you don't wear your seatbelt and you hear an annoying chime. We can set that up for a variety of different safety features. So some cost-neutral strategies. We want to find ways to save your client $33 a month. How could we do that? Perhaps reducing insurance cost. If a $1,200 annual premium is reduced by just 10%, then 4 months of Geotab services are cost neutral. Reduce one accident a year. Non-lethal accidents average $16,000 as per the NHTSA, and that's the annual cost of 40 units. So here's a small case study. We had a client that had a business need for seatbelts to be worn at all times. They had concerns over speeding due to poor planning. So what features did they utilize? Exception alert enabled upon seatbelt usage. Safety-based driver scorecard was created as a custom report at STS. Those driver scorecards are reviewed monthly to improve safe driving. Some positive outcomes to this organization. So this is a very large pest control fleet, the 24th largest fleet in all of North America. The purchase was driven by the risk department, who implemented a training and enforcement program. Estimated savings on this project thus far have been in excess of $28 million over a 3-year period. Most of that's simply coming from reduction in accidents and liability. Maximizing productivity. So you can dispatch by closest to, thus creating reduction in miles traveled and maximizing the customer service. You can receive real-time alerts upon entering or exiting zones. One of the things we always encourage people to do is upload their core customers as zones. Some cost-neutral strategies. Adding one extra job stop delivery per month, assuming a minimum impact of $33, is going to make this thing free for you. Review trips detail reports and ensure that drivers are not traveling duplicate routes. Ensure that all the customers are loaded into zones to improve that customer service. A reduction of 60 miles traveled per month, or 2 miles per day, makes the solution free to your customer. Business need or concern here. We had a client that wanted to see how much time the sales and delivery staff was spending with the customer. The client uploaded all top-tier customers in the system as zones, which provided visibility into how the field is interacting with these core customers. Some positive outcomes of the organization. Our client's currently reviewing data collected on time spent with the customers to revise the routes, and sharing this data with their customers is serving to strengthen bonds and distribution channels. So once again, it's not always about just saving money. Perhaps it's increasing revenue as well. Improving fleet management. So some features. Review fuel consumption directly from the ECM. Just like when you look at your car and you see that your fuel is on empty or full, we have that visibility into it remotely. Ensure that those vehicles are obtaining the targeted miles per gallon. If you have a vehicle that's supposed to get 33 miles per gallon, take a look at reports and make sure that it is. Receive real-time alerts based upon engine issues. Send geocoded emails to fleet managers complete with vehicle codes and descriptions. Some cost-neutral strategies. Very simply, reduce fuel consumption by 8 gallons a month. The fuel consumption report details total miles driven, fuel used, and fuel burned at 0 speed. Also, an O2 sensor issue can cost you almost a 40% reduction in miles per gallon. We pick up that information remotely. One preventative repair from a check engine light annually. An average cost of repair for a check engine light is $367, or the average cost of the Geotab service. Also, too, catalytic converters are the third most common issue and will cost over $1,000 to repair. So another case study here, we had a client that had a business need or concern to reduce fuel consumption and miles traveled daily, almost like any customer would, and they wanted to improve preventative maintenance. So what features did they use? We had the fuel report batched to management weekly. We implemented the driver feedback functionality to discourage idling or speeding. Stephen will cover this in the overview, but essentially, if that driver chooses to sit in their vehicle, run it while they do paperwork, after 5 minutes a very loud beep begins, and that behavior is changed. Real-time email alerts were also sent back to the mechanic when check engine light issues were present, thus allowing them to get the materials they needed to make the repair before the vehicle even returned. Some positive outcomes to this organization. After 3 months, miles traveled have reduced by 12% and fuel consumption has been lowered by an astonishing 31%. That has created a $363 reduction in cost per vehicle per month after the Geotab services have been paid for. The reduction in vehicle downtime is also improved due to improved repair process. Ensuring compliance. Features. We can produce an IFTA compliant miles by state log passively. Total miles driven by state are recorded for each vehicle. There is always somebody in the back of every office that is charged with acquiring and submitting this information. We can now record this passively with the Geotab system. Additionally, we have an hours of service solution available that meets federal regulations. So some cost neutral strategies. Reduce that back office paperwork by just 1 hour a week. Streamline reporting on miles by state and logs with batch reporting of Excel worksheets. Eliminate 1 DOT fine annually. An average fine for a driver failing to complete a record of duty status is $8,000, or the annual cost of 20 active units. So another case study here, we have a client that had miles by state self-reported historically and compiled by the back of office staff. Feature they used, miles by state report batch monthly to the administrative staff. Some positive outcomes. There's an estimated reduction of 10 hours of labor for this back office staff, creating $150 worth of savings monthly. Now they're also looking at how they implemented the hours of service solution. Will also streamline some of that back office process. Rollout process. These are some best practices that we've learned in helping our clients maximize the value of the Geotab solution. Implement the Geotab solution in a location and measure the results in month 0 with no alerts being sent to the drivers or management in real time. We're going to batch reports to the stakeholders weekly to include fuel, client identified exceptions such as speeding and seatbelt, idling time, miles driven, and engine fault. This forces your client to be engaged in the process, thus reducing churn and showing a maximum value on the project itself. At the end of those 30 days, we encourage our clients to implement real-time alerts, driver feedback, and have a staff meeting to present the solution and the organizational expectations. We encourage them to introduce the driver scorecard and perhaps build an incentive program. From there, we want to ensure that the reduction in expenses over the following 30 days creates a net zero cost in monthly service. Some numbers to think about, just even from Gartner, a 10% reduction in miles and 8% reduction in fuels. From here, I'm going to hand it off to Stephen Bell. Stephen Bell is going to give you a demo of the software itself and tie back to numerous things in my presentation today to show the value of the software itself. Stephen?
Thanks, Andy. So to show you what the Geotab portal looks like, what you're looking at here is the actual Geotab dashboard. This is where managers will be able to view the data of the vehicles and how they are monitoring that data from a day, weekly, or monthly process. A couple of great features about this portal is that it doesn't require any additional software to be installed on any customer computer or terminal. This information is all stored on the cloud and can be accessed on any computer just using a simple internet browser. This portal will operate really easily using browsers such as Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, or Firefox. Today we're just going to use Google Chrome as an example of this portal. Another great feature about this is it allows managers and users of this system to be able to access this on a work computer, on a home computer, and not require them to log in or log out every hour without use. So today we're going to go through and show a lot of the features and systems that will also relate to the information Andy's already provided. So when we're looking at this dashboard, you're going to be able to see a lot of great information, such as the Watchdog report. This is going to provide you information about vehicles in the field and if they're communicating, if there's any vehicles that might not be installed, and how they're actively being reported. You'll also notice that this report is updating very frequently to make sure that we're providing real-time feedback. As I scroll down here, you're going to be able to see a lot more information about a driver scorecard. This is going to help you understand how your vehicles are operating individually as well as against the entire fleet as a whole. Then you can begin to understand what the average is and maybe identify some users who might have some additional coaching that might be required. You can also then begin to see additional reports. In this case, they've got idling reports built out on a yesterday basis as well as a monthly basis that will help target certain drivers that might have some excessive idling events. Keep in mind that everything you're seeing here on this dashboard can be customized, as well as all these reports can be built out to be sent on a scheduled notification. So you can be having these reports sent to those managers and those directors daily, weekly, monthly, at the end of every shift. Whatever's needed can be met. It's meant to be dynamic. The next thing I want to talk about is kind of the hierarchy of how this system is built out. When looking at the group hierarchy for the entire organization, it's really important to make sure that you're building out the entire organizational chart. Where this becomes important is when you start adding vehicles and users to specific groups. It can be by region, by district, or by certain location. Once you start attaching vehicles and users to these groups, it really helps attach right information to the right personnel so they're seeing information that is specific to them and their need. That way you have district managers only viewing district information and they're not being totally bombarded with a lot of regional information that might not be necessary for them and their current objective. So once this is built out between the organizational hierarchy, then we start adding users at different security levels. Maybe you have administrators, maybe you have default users, maybe you just have some view-only type status situations. And then as you start adding vehicles, you can begin then to show a lot of information. So I show you a specific vehicle here. You're going to be able to get a lot of information about what can be tracked. You're going to have device descriptions. You're going to see the serial number associated with the vehicle. You're also going to be able to pick up the VIN, the odometer, and the engine hours. License plate can be added as well as specific comments. This will allow you the ability to really put in great information associated with this vehicle. You can use asset numbers, vehicle names, driver names, or it could be as simple as the big black truck. Whatever is necessary for you and your organization is going to allow you the ability to create everything here and view it continually. So once you have all of your vehicle information set up, that way you're going to be able to reference that information from reports as well as viewing information on a map. So let's jump to the map section. When looking at the map, this system uses Bing's mapping for all of its information. Now here you can see I have the continental US as well as Canada and Mexico, and I can quickly access my list of vehicles and be able to pull up that vehicle at any given time and see exactly what that vehicle is doing. So in this case, I can see the vehicle is driving. I can also hover over the vehicle to see the current rate of speed that the vehicle is traveling. I can also see the location in which this vehicle is located. I can also see the current speed limit on that road to know that this vehicle is not exceeding the speed limit. This allows for a great information to be able to see what the vehicle is currently doing. Maybe I want to see what the vehicle has done over the course of the day. This is going to allow me to be able to view the trip history report and understand where this vehicle has gone. This in essence is really the breadcrumb trail for this vehicle over the course of this day, where I have options to look at maybe previous days, weeks, months, or even set up a custom parameter. And by using this, I have the ability to look at entire fleet, or I can look at a single vehicle and the route that they took. I can begin to understand throughout the course of this route where they traveled and the current speed at which they traveled throughout that route. Here we can see that the vehicle has changed its speed just throughout a small drive from one location to another. You'll also notice this Publix location number 165. As I pan this map around and I zoom in, you can begin to understand that this is actually a zone in the system. If I move and add a satellite view, we can see where this location is actually at on a map, and we can understand how the vehicle might interact with this location. This is a great example of adding a customer zone in the system. I can also turn on the entire breadcrumb trail for this vehicle and understand the exact routes that were taken, as well as I can change my different map features depending on what is necessary. I can also begin to see when there's other rules that have been broken, maybe a speeding violation, or some idling in this situation. These are some of those events Andy had mentioned in the past regarding safety or monitoring excessive fuel usage. This is how you can see these real time from a breadcrumb trail from just a single vehicle driving throughout the day. The next portion I want to cover is talking about the rules that are set up for these vehicles that can help you monitor this information. So as I move down to rules, you're going to be able to see a lot of information that's provided here and how it's all laid out. The first 3 rules I want to touch on are all revolving around the accelerometer that Andy had mentioned previously. This is going to help you monitor and be able to track driver safety as well as driver behavior. So in this case, we're looking at harsh braking, hard acceleration, and harsh cornering, all built around what kind of vehicle profile these devices are installed in. In this case, we're monitoring for very large semi-trucks towing very large trailers delivering equipment. We want to be able to make sure that the drivers are operating these vehicles properly and they're not experiencing any of these events unnecessarily. In this case, if any of the drivers experience a hard brake or a hard acceleration event that they could have avoided, the system's going to be able to read that information and be able to provide direct feedback to the driver. So 2 things will happen. The information is going to show up on a report letting them know that a hard acceleration or a harsh braking event is taking place with a specific driver, a date, time, and location. But what's also going to happen is a device is going to beep rather loudly and let the driver know that the event that just took place is an event that should be avoided, and that will help curb the driver behavior in this situation to help them become a safer driver in the future. Keep in mind these beeping alerts can be turned off and turned on for every rule that I'm going to show here today. This way you can turn things off and only monitor them on a report if necessary. As I scroll down, you're going to see a lot of other rules, some of which may be turned on, some of them might be turned off. Speeding, in this case, we can turn this on and we can be able to monitor the speed of a vehicle against the posted speed limit. In this case, I'm only monitoring speeding events that might exceed 6 miles over the posted speed limit. So in this case, if a vehicle is doing 41 and a 35, I'm going to get information on that incident. I'm going to be able to get it on a report, and if I wanted to, I could provide email feedback or beeping alerts to the driver so we can get real-time information. I can also disable rules at any time and make sure that maybe I don't really need to monitor that information depending on what might be necessary. Seatbelt information. This is another one that Andy had mentioned, where I can begin to understand what drivers are operating with their seatbelts on or off. I can provide beeping notifications to these drivers to remind them that they need to be wearing their seatbelts. There's some other rules in the system that might not be necessarily used, but you can begin to see the flexibility and the differences between each of these rules to monitor specific information. Possible accidents being another one. Might be very important for you to know real time when drivers might have engaged in an accident depending on the information that's being provided from that accelerometer data. A great thing to note here, it is really important for customers to install the device correctly, properly, and out of the way to make sure that you're not getting false data on this type of rule. Idling, another great piece of information Andy spoke on earlier. This is a great way to reduce fuel costs instantly. You're going to be seeing savings automatically from just reducing idling times. Whether you have a driver who's doing paperwork on site while the vehicle's on, or you have somebody who's just not really paying attention to the amount of time that the vehicle sits between stops, between deliveries, or while in the vehicle's fleet yard. Once this value is set, it will begin to monitor time idled based on gear position and the vehicle being stopped. You're not going to have to worry about idling events at a red light or at a stop sign. Those items are going to be removed, so you're not going to have that additional noise in the report. Again, you can turn beeping on. You can also turn on email notifications so managers can get this information. Again, going back to that real-time feedback. A lot of other rules here that can be listed. Not going to cover too much on all of them. I really want to focus on talking about engine maintenance. really being able to monitor what the engine's doing. The check engine light that comes on in a vehicle is very important to monitor. This can be a high priority or a low priority warning. Anytime that check engine light comes on, you're going to be able to get direct visibility on what that issue is. For a mechanic, it's very helpful for them to know that when the check engine light comes on, it's regarding something, maybe an O2 sensor that has failed on bank 2. That tells them a lot more information than just a check engine light is on for vehicle 123 at a specific location. When they know that an O2 sensor's gone down on a specific bank, now they know the exact part maybe that they need to order and have in-house by the time the vehicle comes back to the shop for repair. It allows for a lot shorter downtimes, as well as when low priority information comes across, that will really help prevent major issues. Maybe you have higher engine temperatures, maybe you have poor exhaust on an emission standpoint. A lot of these different things can be monitored just based on a single rule. Then we can talk about monitoring batteries. Battery drain is very important. This is going to help mechanics be able to monitor voltage in vehicles, and depending on how low those voltage meters are reading, they can begin to really monitor. Maybe vehicles are sitting in a yard for a couple of weeks at a time, and that way they can be able to prevent dead batteries due to zero or low usage over the course of that time. It's important to keep those batteries charged at a healthy level. That way they don't dissipate and become unuseful and have to be replaced. The last rule I was going to mention, talking about unauthorized device removal. This is a great rule to help monitor tampering, to make sure that the device isn't uninstalled, maybe for a couple of hours during a trip, and reinstalled. Anytime that event takes place, you're going to be able to get information on those events, whether it's an email sent to a manager or showing up in a report that might be sent out daily or weekly. It's another great level of security to make sure that your devices are constantly staying in the vehicles, providing the right information to reducing cost. Once the rules are set up in the system, this is going to allow you the ability to really get back to these dashboards. This dashboard is what's really going to provide a great amount of information depending on what's necessary. Going back to that driver scorecard or idling reports, whatever might be necessary in the system. As well as there's a lot of other great information here. You can look at engine data, as well as you're going to be able to look at fuel usage reports and set up maintenance reminders. A lot of different things can be built around this system depending on the needs of each customer. It's meant to be flexible and dynamic. One last thing I wanted to bring up was hours of service, as this is a new feature that Geotab is providing and a really big need for a lot of customers due to a lot of new federal regulations. I'm going to actually change portals at this time to show you a portal that's set up more specifically to hours of service and what those logs look like. These are the HOS logs that are being reported for this specific vehicle. You can see the date in which I'm reviewing this information, and I can actually pull information in a specific time frame based on a specific driver that's been loaded into the system. Once I have this information, I can then get plenty of information depending on what I'm trying to find. As I scroll all the way to the bottom, I can begin to see when drivers go to driving status, when they've been on duty, when they've been in sleeper berth. I can also see the date and time, the locations that these have taken place, as well as maybe a trailer asset number that's been associated with a specific vehicle. A couple of other great items here. I can begin to understand if there are any warnings that have taken place during that time to be able to help reduce violations due to the federal mandate. I can make changes to those logs if necessary from an administrative standpoint. My driver can verify their logs, that's what this little check mark is showing, as well as I can show any time there might have been an edit to those logs by an administrator. This is very, very helpful for drivers that have had to keep paper logs in the past. They're cumbersome and they take a lot of work from the driver to be able to stay on top of, and the driver has to remember all the different federal regulations. We remove all of that by implementing the Garmin device. That Garmin device is going to allow drivers to be able to just change their status updates from driving, on duty, off duty, sleeper berth, maybe even a passenger that's driving, and it will provide them feedback and information if they're about to violate a law or a regulation, and that way they can operate and make sure things are happening appropriately. This is what you can expect to see from drivers, monitoring their logs, and providing that feedback back to the portal. This is what is going to make a lot of things easier for back-end office management to make sure these logs are done properly and effectively. You can also be able to pull a compliance print of all verified logs that you can store on site to be able to meet that federal regulation. This is going to provide you an ultimate solution in being able to see all of the information that your vehicles are tracking, and this can cover a lot of different items. You'll also see there's IFTA miles compliance here. You can get speed graphs, along with a lot of different rules in the system, being able to look at devices on a map directly, as well as going back to those different summary reports and pulling information. All this is stored in one place that can be accessed on the internet with a specific browser. Doesn't really require any major software to be installed. That's the beauty of this system. Thank you for taking the time today to be able to listen and understand more about Geotab. This should provide you a lot of really direct and specific information that you can use as examples and tools to be able to find the right opportunities in your areas with the right solution. You're not going to have to worry about picking the right solution based on the vehicle. This solution will meet it all.